going to begin by having a conversation about the local industrial strategy, I think, Alan. So we've got some more guests to join us. Hannah's obviously staying in the studio with us, but we're joined by Abby Brown, who's the leader of Stoke-on-Trent City Council, and Liz Barnes from Staffordshire University, the Vice-Chancellor, and from Trevor Macmillan, the Vice-Chancellor of Keele University. So good afternoon. We're in the afternoon now. Afternoon to all of you. So there are 5 of you in the studio with us. Alan, why don't you introduce these guys and where they kind of fit into the strategy?
Yes, so first of all, these are fellow board members, and I'm really proud that they've joined the board, but also the role that they play in running institutions they run locally. So, again, I think this shows you the kind of level people we have on the LEP, the engagement we have, and also the amount of traction we're able to drive locally, which is really important. If I kind of give you just an introduction to the industrial strategy and a bit about the LEP,
that'd be great.
Then I can introduce the board members. So. In 2018, back in 2017, the government published its National Industrial Strategy. And then in 2018, we were given the task to think about what a local industrial strategy might be. And the role of the LEP is really to develop that strategy and then to implement it locally. And we did a lot of work around developing a data set, making sure that the LEP's ambition to be strategy-led and data-driven is realised, and we very much are in that position now. And we built out that work, we built out a data set, we understand our economy in detail. And then what we did was we started to build those into some strategic building blocks. And having done that, we set on 4 foundational pillars for how we want to build our economy here. So they are future workforce, that's thinking about skills. They are growing business, and that's how we support businesses to grow. They're about place and how we create the places which make this the best place to live, work, learn and do business. And then we also think about innovation and how we can use that to build our businesses and build our economy. And having done that, we now have our subgroups. So the LEP is focused around strategy, governance and delivery. And in the strategy pillar, we have our 4 subgroups, and they're chaired by these fantastic people around me.
That's great. So I'll introduce each one of them and just help us understand the different subgroups that they represent and their areas of work. That'd be great.
Yeah, should we go speak to each of them individually?
That's
right.
We
start off with Trevor. So Trevor chairs our innovation subgroup. So he's the Vice-Chancellor of Keele University, but introduce yourself, Trevor.
Hi, yes, as you say, I'm Trevor Macmillan, Vice-Chancellor at Keele, been in that role for 5 years and on and off the LEP board for most of that time. Had a long-held interest in, first of all, how universities make sure they have an impact on their local economy, but also at a national level, a role in thinking about how universities in general relate better to business to make sure that we get a mutual benefit across both sectors.
Thanks. And then in terms of the pillar you've been running in terms of our industrial strategy, so in terms of innovation, do you want to just talk us through what the initial ideas have been and how that group's going?
Sure. First of all, I should say it's been a great pleasure to chair an excellent group of people on the innovation subgroup. They've all been from the business sector, which is important. And I'd certainly like to take this opportunity to thank them for the time and the very valuable insights. As one of the 4 core policies in the local implementation plan, innovation, which has, as we'll all recognise, been historically really embedded in Stoke and Staffordshire, literally for centuries, it's going to be critical to this survive and thrive agenda. We could define innovation in a number of different ways, but there are 2 core elements. The first is around research and development, which is fundamentally around inventing things and processes that, when implemented, make a real difference to the things our businesses do and make, as well as doing them efficiently and as effectively as possible. But also, secondly, it's about having adaptive businesses that can keep up to date with advanced technologies and the way they are applied, so that we are both competitive, but also leading in productivity within the region. And I'm sure the last few months have emphasised that last point to us, even if only in the adoption of communication technologies that have absolutely dominated our working practices during the pandemic. It's important to recognise that it's not just the pandemic that we're having to adapt to at the moment. There's clearly the economic challenges that are both here and I'm going to get, I think, a bit worse for a while. And also, our group are very keen on recognising that we cannot and must not forget about the climate emergency. Now, how we actually enhance innovation in the region is not straightforward. It won't be a quick fix. and it will interface very much with things that you'll hear about from Liz and Abby and Hannah. But there are many opportunities to move forward, not least because enhancing innovation is very clear and it's an important part of this government's plans for the country overall, but also specifically around the levelling up agenda, which I think we all hope that will benefit from in this part of the world. So one of the key messages, I think, on the basis of a number of different ways that we could go forward, is reiterating what Alan said earlier, that it's important that you tell us what you think will help. Are you a big company that has a research and development arm that could provide insight to others, but also benefit from collaboration with other sectors or indeed within your supply chain? Are you a small company with some of those bright ideas, but you need the money and support to help you develop them and get established? Or even someone that hasn't got a company yet and you want to get through some of those early steps? Through the LEP discussions, we do aim to enhance the exchange in skills in various ways through networks, through training, support. We do believe there should be ways that facilities can be provided to help and develop and test new ideas. And also there should be funds available to support various elements of the pathway, including, for example, access to venture capital funds if that's what's needed. This agenda will also be part of the implementation of some fundamental enablers that I think we need to develop across the county, including being better connected through better digital and 5G connectivity, by being better adapted to zero carbon energy future, which will not only address a clear societal need, but it will make us more sustainable as businesses and organizations into the future. But also by developing an ambitious and innovative mindset in the citizens of Staffordshire. And by doing that, we'll support a workforce that really can perform strongly and adapt to the ever-changing environment that will be a feature of society from now on. Some of this the LEP will be able to do itself. But some of it is already being done by existing structures and organisations, such as the Chamber of Commerce, the British Innovation Centre, and indeed the two universities. But we must also be outward looking and utilise opportunities outside the region and looking very much at national initiatives, but also recognise our role within the Midlands and the Midlands engine, which is gradually emerging as a key conduit for a lot of this. And one of the big roles for the LEP will be an important facilitator in allowing people within the region to actually link into those broader initiatives. So, Alan, I do hope this gives you a flavour for certainly the ambition and some of the things that are in train. As I said, what's important today, as you said earlier, is that the people who are listening to this really do talk to us and let us know what they think would be the best things for their businesses, so that we can focus our efforts in the most productive directions.
Thanks ever so much for that, Trevor.
Thank you. And the others, Alan?
Yeah, so thanks a lot for that, Trevor. And as I say, this is about having a genuine conversation with people. Get in touch with the LEP. If you want to be on one of the subgroups, we want you to be engaged. But hopefully you can start to see from Trevor the kind of ambition we have to really change things as well. So I move on to Liz next from Staffordshire University. We'll go from one university to the other. So hi, nice to see you, Liz.
Hi, good afternoon, Alan, Hannah.
And just before we get started, so Liz, you also, as well as chairing our Future Workforce Group, you also chaired the Skills Advisory Panel in the LEP as well. And I know you pulled together I think I almost forgot it was then, a poll, a series of questions. So they should be on screen shortly, but if you can fill those in during today, then that'll give us a really interesting data set to go and work with. Did you want to bring us up to speed on that, Liz?
Yes, thank you. Usually the survey that's conducted is around the skills gaps, but what's come through both the Skills Advisory Panel and the Future Workforce is the importance of careers advice. And that isn't particularly now really pertinent, not just for young people, but also for adults who need to find their way back into work. And so this time what we want to do with our survey is have a look at that relationship between education providers and training providers with the workplace, and looking at how placements can help in this and work experience. And it's particularly pertinent as we've got the Kickstart scheme that government are offering currently and other restart schemes. But also we've got emerging the T-levels. One of our colleges and one of our schools is starting off with the digital T-levels in the near future. And they're going to require those participating in the T-levels to do 40 hours work placement. And then also we've got apprenticeships, of course, and many of our employers offer apprenticeships. But the feedback we're getting is about, do we understand enough of what's required? Do we offer the best possible placements we can? Do young people in school really understand the kind of skills that you need to go into different professions? So we want to use this survey to begin to understand more about the relationship between our education providers and employers and how we can improve that and really help the pathway and progression into work across the county.
Thanks for that. And then, brilliant, thanks for that. And in terms of the future workforce, do you want to talk us through the work you've been doing, the vision that you've been creating with the group?
Yeah, thank you. And just to echo Trevor, thanks to all those that participate. We have colleges, schools, local authorities, the Chamber of Commerce and private business involved in these discussions. What we want to be able to offer across Staffordshire, in line with the local industrial strategy, is the opportunity for satisfying work and a pipeline of opportunity for all of our population. And this is building on individual skill sets and aspirations. We hear lots in the media about low value job, low skills job. Actually, all jobs are important. And what's really important is that people get satisfaction from their work, that they feel that they've got opportunity going forward. And so within the future workforce, there's a range of strands that we're looking at. Emerging skills gaps has always been pertinent to what we do, looking at where our local industrial strategy is focused and the kind of jobs that are emerging and how we align the skills being offered within the universities and within colleges with the needs of the local community and the jobs available. But again, particularly today for COVID, but going forward it'll be equally as important. We need to be able to upskill, to reskill and multi-skill our current workforce. And it's making sure that we can offer across our education and training providers in the county flexible provision and continuous pathways. And we also need to be looking at how we prepare for those jobs of the future, the jobs that don't exist today. Of course, we don't know what they are, but working with employers, we can begin to have those conversations. And particularly, Trevor made reference to 5G. Digital is going to cut across every area of work, and those digital skills are really important. And what we want the focus to be on is you can start anywhere in work and go anywhere. And Alan, you told your story about how you started in your business. Many of us start in a role where we could never foresee where we actually end up. And this is around how we help this workforce to grow. And as previously mentioned with the Skills Advisory Panel, we talk about how we build those relationships with employers and help the smooth transition into work and match the skills that are required by local industry and employers. And folks in the government now are talking about small bites of learning and adults having a passport to lifelong learning, being able to access learning as they go through their careers, because our days at school never really end through life. They will help us to progress in our work. And so it's about building this provision, understanding current and future employer demands. So we really need this partnership with businesses to understand the kind of gaps you've got within your workforce, the gaps that you think may emerge, or for us to help in thinking about how you might pivot your business, particularly in the kind of stresses and challenges that we're facing today. And also what we'd like to do is offer everybody the opportunity to increase their income, to be able to grow their earnings as they begin as well to fulfill their ambitions in their work. So hopefully that gives a flavour of what the future workforce are working on. Thanks, Alan.
Thanks ever so much for that, Liz. And I think it's really important, let's not make bones about it. We want the residents, the people who work here to earn more. And that's about finding the right kinds of industries with the right kind of jobs. But as you said, it's about satisfying work. If you don't want to earn more, then that's okay if you're satisfied, but we want you to be happy in the work you're doing as well. And I think you know, it's really, again, a message I want to come across today is that the LEP has got a very progressive vision. We're looking for things to be better for people. And, you know, we're not being over-prescriptive, but we are trying to be leading from the front.
Yeah, absolutely. As you say, job satisfaction is not all about the income. It's about doing the things that make us happy individually, that use our skill sets, where we can build on our experience. And actually, you know, I look at some of our graduates and what they want to do is give back, want to volunteer. One of our graduates this year was in his 70s. I don't think he was looking for his next job. He was going out to do more in society and add value. And it adds his own confidence and satisfaction.
Absolutely. And in fact, thanks ever so much for that, Liz. I've moved over to Hannah now. So nice to do one in real life.
I know, yeah.
The only board member who's here.
Days.
So we maintain our distancing as we're meant to. So Hannah, you're chairing our Growing Business Group. Did you want to talk to us a little bit about what you've been doing in the group and what the groups are trying to achieve?
Yeah, I'm a fairly new member to the board, really, and one of the reasons that I joined the LEP is because I wanted to try and help businesses locally and to make a difference. So that's why I put my hand up and said I'll chair the group. And I've been really fortunate that on my subgroup I've had some great businesses that have been giving us lots of input in terms of what they feel is needed, not just throughout Stoke-on-Trent and the north of Staffordshire, but the south as well. So we've got businesses on that subgroup from across the county. So it's really important to get everyone's view to try and help. The main key really with growing business is it's all about accelerating business evolution. So it's all about growth. It's not just sustaining. It's about how can we help businesses out there to grow. And to do that, we've kind of come up with a few key kind of themes that we feel will help. One of the predominant conversations was around business space, accommodation, making sure, I mean, we spent an awful lot of time in our group talking about that, because from a growth point of view, for businesses to be able to grow, that is quite important. We need to have the right kind of business space or office space or whatever that is. And obviously that's all completely changing now because of COVID. So we're looking at that more and more. Innovative startups is a big thing, a big theme that came out from our discussions, that, you know, how can we support people out there and businesses out there that are starting up. I think that's even more so now. People during COVID are looking more at starting up their own businesses because they're probably now in a position where they need to, so we looked around that, and we looked at the partners, working with partners out there such as the Growth Hub to help in terms of that. Evolving businesses is another key theme that we've looked at. So where that support comes from to help businesses to grow. The main people that will deliver that is the Chamber of Commerce and the Growth Hub, so they're very key in giving that support. So we were looking at, well, what can they be doing to help? So there were loads of conversations around that. So we've been looking at maturity models that will help businesses, which I'm quite excited about because I think that's going to have a huge benefit to businesses. Looking at investment, looking at through digital technology, you know, zero carbon solutions is massive for my industry, the ceramic industry. That's huge right now. We're looking at that, and that's really important. Staffordshire for Business is another big thing. It's about how do we market Staffordshire? How do we encourage more businesses to come into and come and stay here in Staffordshire? So very much about inward investment campaigns, how we can work with the inward investment team. Lots of conversations kind of around that. Improving, I suppose, how we market. This is a great place to live, work, and do business. That's one of our key slogans as a LEP now, that that's come out of the subgroups. And the big government ask for my group is we're looking for about 51 million to be able to deliver this. So that's kind of what my group have been discussing. Hope that helps.
Excellent. And in terms of, I think the key point I'll come back to is about business evolution. I think that's more relevant now than ever. So definitely. When we thought about it, we weren't necessarily in the middle of a global pandemic. But in terms of evolution, it's about businesses changing every day. If you're a small business, then you may be adapting to the market. If you're a growing business, then you're going from having less structure, you're then having formal HR, formal finance departments. So evolution is happening in many ways, isn't it? In terms of as you scale your business, it changes shape or you adapt to the market.
I think you're right. I think there's a lot more restructuring taking place. I think businesses are having an opportunity now to look within themselves, because we've got to survive, but also to grow. I mean, for example, my business, we're looking at not just surviving, we're growing. We're in a kind of 3-year expansion plan at the moment. We're trying to build a factory right now. So in these times, it's like looking at how can we still achieve those goals, but keep the company thriving as well.
Yeah, and you've talked as well about, on your own journey, you're having to make capital investments as you build a new factory, but also you're having to think about, digital, how you put in a bit better processes and systems as you grow. So everyone's evolving all of the time, aren't they?
Exactly, yeah. And that's what I would say my subgroup is about. And that's why I encourage people out there, communicate with the LEP. It would be great if you want to come on my subgroup and just give me your voice and give me your opinions and help us to put the support out there that businesses need right now.
Okay, and as you said, the most successful businesses are always adapting and changing.
Yes.
And if I go over to, certainly not last but certainly not least, over to Abby, who chairs our Placer group. So did you want to introduce yourself first, Abby?
Yeah, sure. I'm Councillor Abby Brown. I'm the leader of Stoke-on-Trent City Council. I've been a councillor for 10 years and I became deputy leader of the City Council in 2015 and the leader in May last year. So I've sat on Stoke-on-Trent and Staffordshire LEP since 2015, which I find hard to believe makes me probably one of the longest serving board members at the moment. I've been the lead member for the Ceramic Valley Enterprise Zone since about 2015 and I chair the board and I'm really pleased to be the chair of the Place subgroup.
Thanks ever so much, Abby. And again, we work very closely. So there's a child subgroup of Place called Localities, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But did you want to talk to us about what we've been doing in the Placer group and kind of the ideas and the vision you're pulling together?
Yeah, sure. So as Hannah says, the strapline of the LEP, the best place to live, learn, work and do business, really is pulled together by the essence of what place is, which is a kind of very public secretary type word, isn't it? But in effect, it's everything. It's the houses we live in, the infrastructure we travel on, the things we do in our spare time and everything around us. And local authorities would, I guess, say that we are the leaders of place. We're the glue that holds it all together. And Stoke-on-Trent City Council is a £500 million business that delivers over 700 services that touch the lives of every resident of this city every day. So for me, it's really important that myself, my colleague, Alan White, who is the leader of Staffordshire County Council, along with our colleagues at districts and boroughs across Staffordshire, are involved in the discussion around this. And the districts and boroughs work together, as you say, Alan, in the localities subgroup, which is kind of a reference of all the great things that are happening across every area of Stoke-on-Trent and Staffordshire, but then kind of pulled together in a thematic way at the Place subgroup. We've got a couple of different headings that we agreed that we felt represented every part of life in a way that we thought was important to cover. So that's towns and cities, infrastructure, digital, well-being, employment and housing. And at the moment, we're working our way through those. We decided to start at housing, something I'm quite passionate about and interested in. And at the moment, we're kind of having a discussion around pulling together the great things that are happening all across Staffordshire and Stoke-on-Trent, the things that we would aspire to want to do, and also accepting the challenges from our colleagues out there amongst the LEP board and also wider across the geography of Stoke-on-Trent and Staffordshire in terms of what we should be doing. And we're starting to evolve and innovate that discussion around those different things, whether it's sharing best practice, so from different parts of the county, things that are perhaps happening that we want to replicate elsewhere, and raising that all-important best practice for colleagues, as well as looking outside Stoke-on-Trent and Staffordshire, what's happening elsewhere, and how we can learn from other areas, and how we can also clearly continue to make ourselves the best in class amongst local enterprise partnerships across the UK, really. So we're concentrating on housing at the moment, and we're moving on to those other areas as we move forward. But it's very much a moving picture because we're keen to continually update things that are happening and to reflect the priority of the government along with the priorities of our partners locally.
Thanks ever so much, Abby. And we really have been getting into some of the meaty subjects. It's not been kind of pithy stuff, is it? I mean, in terms of housing, we've looked at some really chunky topics, haven't we?
Yes, I think you and I have particularly enjoyed discussions over the last few weeks about modern methods of construction, which is quite topical in a way. Obviously, the government agenda is to bring forward more houses. And as a local authority leader, this is something that I spend quite a lot of time talking about anyway. But it's really interesting to talk to colleagues across the county in terms of what their challenges are, because as a LEP, we're looking a diverse city and county area, that it's really great to understand the challenges everywhere and how we can work together to address those. And also that then links into the other subgroups, how that fits with future employment, how it fits with innovation. And I think it's quite a very dynamic discussion, really. And the members of the place group are an eclectic mix of individuals from universities, businesses, all different types of backgrounds. And it is a very kind of blue sky thinking type discussion in terms of where we think things are going and what we ought to be focusing on, but moving at pace. And that's one of the things that I like about the LEP. I like to move at pace.
Brilliant. And I think, again, back to the localities group, and I know it's one of the questions, but, we are very careful to make sure we use place and localities to make sure we represent the entirety of the area. So every district is represented, and the conversations have been getting better and better. So we're finding real diverse opinions, aren't we, or diverse experiences across the whole patch, which is helping everybody, I think, isn't it?
It is, absolutely. I think one of the parts of evolution, in a way, for the LEP over recent years is how you bring in that diversity. Clearly from my point of view, I'm an expert at talking about Stoke-on-Trent, but it's great to hear about the other parts of the county too. And I think the way we've approached this around place, supported by a locality subgroup, means that my voice is the same weighting as colleagues from Lichfield, and we're able to have really open and interesting conversations around that, where nobody's got the right answer, but we all want to share expertise to achieve something that benefits all of us.
And I think the other thing that I would say is, in terms of the other subgroup leads, so Liz, Trevor, Hannah, they also sit on place as well, and that's how we bring all of these ideas together so that the whole thing joins up. And hopefully you'll see, coming from the LEP now, it's very much a joined up strategy. We absolutely have areas of focus where we're picking the right things to go at, but in terms of our answers, they're always well thought through, they're joined up, and what we're trying to do is make sure that any investment that happens in this area has an exponential impact. So if we make an investment in education, it impacts place, it has a benefit through innovation, it has a benefit to growing businesses. If we make an investment in a place, that's to unlock employment or housing sites, which then will feed through to the education system. So we're trying to make sure that we really do a really good job of joining it all together, making sure that wherever you put an investment, you get an exponential output as well. So did you want to run those two questions quickly?
Yeah, thanks, Alan. Thank you all of you for helping us understand the subgroups and how they operate and their priorities. That's been really helpful and insightful. We have got some questions that are starting to come through to us, so these will be interesting. There's a couple that have come through from a number of people. The first is, I guess, having heard the news over these last days, is kind of a really topical question and on a lot of people's hearts and minds, is can the LEP help to reduce the decline of town centre shopping, as many of the well-known shops are suffering and closing? And I guess that's about immediate news, but also that's been an ongoing issue for a significant period of time, our high streets and the decline in our high streets. Can the LEP impact the decline of our high streets? I'm going to throw that at Abby, if that's okay.
Yeah, I think let anyone pick who wants to have a go.
Yeah, sure. So obviously government agenda in recent years has focused on the Towns Fund, and LEP play a key part in that. I know Alan is playing an active role in our Towns Fund, as are other colleagues actually. I know that Trevor is also involved in the Towns Fund in Newcastle too, around how we do that. And I think the involvement of the LEP brings with it not just the profile of our excellent chairman, but actually the weight of all partners. We all want everywhere to succeed. So I think the involvement of the LEP is crucial in that. But we also have that invaluable lobbying role too. And Alan and I certainly spend a lot of time talking about how we lobby, whether we lobby individually, how we lobby alternately, and how we also lobby together. I think hopefully the value of the list means that we are drawing to the surface those really important areas for us to develop on and focus on, and also have solutions too, because I think that's what the government want to hear. They want to hear solutions, not just that we've all got problems.
Yeah. Anybody else want to pick up on that question about the high streets?
I think the other thing I would talk about is that there is an evolution happening, and Hannah talked about in Growing Business about evolution, and people are having to evolve their business models now. in the current circumstances, some people can't. If you can't open the shop, it's very hard to innovate in terms of being a traditional shopkeeper. But what you are seeing now is the economy move forward very quickly in many ways in terms of the drive to digital and that kind of stuff. But again, we've talked historically, a number of years ago about, a lot of experience, a lot of the shopping experience is experiential, and people still want those experiences. They don't not want them, and it's just about how businesses can adapt to that and make sure they can provide the solutions that people are looking for.
Can I just ask Trevor a question? Trevor, Alan just talked about innovation. How are you lobbying government around innovation, and are there some positive noises coming out?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's lots of discussions going on at the moment, and people will be aware, for example, that the government issued a research and development roadmap in July, and for example, I've been on a group that's been asked to provide advice to some of the major funders of research and development, both in universities and business, which is UKRI, and that report actually came out a couple of weeks ago, and one of the recommendations, just to give you a flavour, was to actually potentially set up what they're calling innovation collaboration zones. So how within a particular regional context can we bring together business and universities or other organisations that are developing new ideas into that levelling up agenda, so that actually you're addressing both at the same time. You're maximising what the country as a whole and the regions get from the expertise they have, but actually having that broader impact on the country. So I think a lot of the noises are right, and I think there genuinely will be opportunities for us going forward, but we've got to be ready. I think one of the things the LEP has learned over the last year is that actually funding opportunities and things can come along very quickly, and having some oven-ready projects and ideas already reasonably well formulated actually means we can pounce on those as quickly as possible and increase our chances of success.
Thanks, Trevor. And it's really important that we have been building that pipeline of projects. We have been building those ideas out. There's just another question which I'd like you to answer, because I know you this is an area of specialisation for your university. Is the past of Stoke-on-Trent has been partly the dirty energy of coal mining. What options might there be in the future for green energy provision? I know that's something that we're looking at across the whole area.
Yeah, well, it's you'll know that at Keele this is big on our agenda, and we've set up our campus as a so-called smart energy network demonstrator, where the most recent big project has been around whether we can put hydrogen into the gas supply to reduce the carbon impact. And some of you might have seen on the news last night, there's a town in Scotland that's going to go over potentially to 100% hydrogen in their energy supply. So that is a unique facility that we have here, and we've got to absolutely exploit it. But again, it's an interesting example, because actually the original thinking and ideas and some of the original funding around that was actually related and came from the Stoke City deal, which is now 8 or 9 years old. So again, that collaboration came through that. So I think we've got lots of opportunities. We need to invest. We need to think about sustainable energy, which transport, which I know right across the region is being given a lot of thought. The digital side inevitably has a benefit from the climate point of view, but also building into those innovative approaches to housing, to the production of energy. We've just got now the contract signed on a couple of wind turbines on a solar farm here, utilising the space we've got in the best way we can to address the agenda. So I think lots of opportunities there. And I think what we've got to make sure that we do is that we keep at the leading edge, because this is moving very, very quickly. And we can't afford to hang around planning things for 5 years, because by then what we originally thought about will have already moved on. So it's hard to keep on top of, but really quite exciting and important that we do so.
Nice. And you pick up on a point there about us wanting to be on the front edge, on the leading edge, on the front foot, and that's something we've really tried really hard in the last year to do with the LEP, isn't it? We are much more forward-thinking, much more progressive than we've ever been.
Can I ask Liz a question? Liz, we've talked about innovation in the future. What do you see the kind of core jobs in staffs and Stoke-on-Trent in the future, and how the university is engaged in kind of aspirationally looking to the future and making sure the folk have got the skills they need for the jobs that we're going to need as we move forward.
Thank you. I think earlier we made reference to the digital technologies and the differences they're going to make, and that's going to be across all industries. Staffordshire University, we have nearly 50% of all of the students in the country that study games. And the games industry, actually, the kind of skill sets our graduates leave with, they go and work in places like health innovation. And so these skills, digital skills, are really, really important. And where the LEP have helped us, for instance, and can help local businesses, they've helped us to set up a smart zone. We can provide access to high-level technologies for local businesses and for our students, who hopefully will then stay here and set up businesses and work within our local industries. So they're developing those skills in AI, in VR, in robotics, that will be crucial as we go forward. And when we talk about digital skills, we also know we've got a really big media industry here, and we've got some of the film industry moving to Staffordshire. We're so well located that we can attract inward investment, and so this kind of digital skills that our graduates are leaving with are perfect for the industries that are developing here. And also we've received funding from the LEP to support CPD and training, so it's not just for working with our students who are now studying full time, but those from industry that need to reskill and upskill and can get access to these part time.
Thanks, Liz. And Abby, a very particular question's just come in we want to throw, if that's okay. Obviously, COVID is a significant issue for us. COVID has been negative for employment across not just the country, but our region. Particularly opportunities for young people are less. How can the LEP help them to get the first step on the jobs ladder?
Well, I think the LEP plays an invaluable role, not only around national schemes, but also local schemes. Obviously, the government have got their Kickstarter scheme, and know that the LEP is involved in various discussions around supporting that for local organisations who are leading it, but also around stimulating the involvement of local businesses in taking that up. There is always something, I think, about the independence of the voices that you hear things from. You know, I'd like to think that people listen to what I say, but I know the reality is that actually the independent voice of, for example, Alan as chair of the LEP, or other business leaders within the LEP, is actually stronger. There's real experience there, and they're able to advocate around things that has that authenticity of having delivered it themselves. So I think there's a really critical role there, actually, of independence and authenticity that promotes and supports roles, whether it's national projects like Kickstarter, or working with some of the brilliant businesses that we have within Stoke-on-Trent and Staffordshire, who are doing great things with apprentices, and hopefully we'll be able to carry on with that moving forward. As far as I'm concerned, more power to Alan's elbow as chairman of the LEP in terms of raising the profile of successful business people here within Stoke-on-Trent and Staffordshire.
And talking of successful business people, Hannah's in the studio with us. Just that same question to you, Hannah, about COVID. How's that impacted you in terms of employment, and how do you see other businesses really supporting young people as we journey forward?
I mean, it's very difficult times, isn't it, really, I think, for most businesses out there at the moment. The key is trying not to make redundancies and restructuring, and for supporting young people. I mean, my business in itself is quite a small business, so there's only 25 of us. It's very difficult in terms of, you know, trying to support the young people, but I think apprenticeships are so important. So for me, and I think Liz would probably agree with it being, you know, talking about the future workforce, I think apprenticeships are a great way for businesses to support the young people. And the Kickstart scheme, for example, that's going to be really positive, I think, for businesses. So I would encourage them to maybe look into the Kickstarter scheme to support them during these difficult times.
And I think, you know, as a business, it's really important that as a business you reflect the society in which you trade and where your business is based. And, you know, that is about supporting the young people, that is about creating apprenticeship opportunities, that is about engaging the Kickstarter programme. But it's also about providing leadership and inspiration to young people, and that's why it's important to tell the story. So, you know, you've tried lots of different things and you've been really diverse in your career. It's about making sure people can hear those stories so they can identify and inspire them. And that's why I'm more than happy to talk about mine and Richard's own business background, because those are things that can inspire other people. And that's how you get young people to, to bet on themselves and to take a chance and invest and go and have a go at creating something. Yeah. And again, there's a lot of people around, and you'll see from the speaker we've had today, there's a huge amount of talent in this area. We are not short of talent. We are not short of good leaders and good leadership. It's just about helping people make those connections, find the right people to go to so that people can be inspired and supported.
Thanks, Alan. Thank you all. We've run out of time, I'm afraid, so I need to let you go. But thank you so much, Trevor, Liz, Abby, for joining us on Zoom. We do appreciate your time. And for Hannah for joining us in the studio, thank you so much. Thank you.